Hello YouTube! This is going to be a video on the complete assembly of the Para Ordnance P14-45, which is actually just a 1911 double stack. So let's go ahead and get started on this. First of all, we'll do the slide assembly. Probably should have gotten all these parts out, but there's not all that many. Don't need that. That's our slide stop. And now I'm going to put in the components that are the Series 80 firing pin safety, which is this plunger and spring, and actually that doesn't go in yet. The first thing you want to do is you're going to put your extractor in. And you're going to put it in, but not all the way. You want about 1 millimeter or so sticking out, just like that. Let's see if I can get that on camera. There we go, just about like that. And then you can go ahead and slide your spring, and if you can get it in the right way, you can go ahead and slide in your spring and plunger, and you just go down inside this hole, just like that. And then once you push the plunger down a little bit, you can push your extractor in all the way, and that is what locks it in. And then you need a couple of punches to do this. What you got to do, first of all, your firing pin goes in, and that just slides in like this, and you do need to depress this in order to be able to put that firing pin in. When you let it up, it's going to hold that there. There we go. Now, this is the part where it can be a little bit tricky, but usually it's not too bad. What you want to do is you want to get this started in here, just like that. And then you want to push this down and hold this with one punch. Hopefully not doing that. See, this is the part where it's kind of tricky. Now you want to try to get that slid down in place, and there you go. Okay, so now check the functionality of this. Go ahead and push that, and you can tell it's not going in all the way. You can look on the front, the firing pin's not protruding. Now if you push that down, you got to use a tool, get it down flush, and you can tell that it goes in all the way. Get a small punch here so it's not hanging up. Goes in all the way. You can see it protruding from the other side. So that is your slide, completely, well, not completely assembled. I mean, you do have to put in the bushing and everything else, but that's really part of the field strip, so I'll do that later. Let's go ahead and move on to the frame. Okay, now for our frame, the first thing you're going to want to put in is your trigger, and that just goes in straight like this. There's a little channel that it fits in. You're going to put it in just like that, and then you want to flip it over to this side because your mag release goes in from this side. You're going to get that all the way through, and then what you want to do is you want to put a little bit of pressure up on that, so it's just about 1 millimeter or 2 up, and then turn it until it clicks in place. And now there's your mag release, all functional. Okay, let's see. Next, let's go ahead and do our disconnector and our sear, and I'll show you how these two pieces go in the gun. They go in just like that. So, one of the things that really helps when you are working on this gun in particular, your mileage may vary, but on this gun, helps to put your mag in, because then you've got this little area right here, and you'll see where that comes into play. Now your disconnector goes together just like this, and it sits in the gun just like that. Oops, getting off camera here. So it sits in just like this, and you can just lay it in and then drop it and it'll slide into place. Let me get that in there. And then it'll slide right up and you can see the top protruding there. Okay, so that's what we wanted. We want that in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get in this part of our plunger, or our lever system that actuates that plunger, and it can be a little tricky to get in there, but what it does is it rests right on this ledge. This little finger rests right on that ledge. So usually I hold the gun sideways so that I can have it not sliding around too much on me. And if you look in there, you can tell, okay, well, I'm getting that kind of lined up okay. Use a little wood dowel or a toothpick or something to get it lined up. And it goes just like that. And then this piece, your little duckbill thing, goes with the duckbill toward the back. And what you want to do is, if you hold this lever right here, that's going to hold that captive in there. So put your finger on that. Try not to let your sear assembly fall out. And then you're going to put this in with that little duckbill going backwards. You're going to slide it into place just like that. And another thing that's really helpful for things like this is a toothpick. So we can kind of put our toothpick in there and see if we can get it to go all the way through, and there it is. Okay, so now we've got those two pieces in place. What we want to go ahead and do now is we're going to grab our small pin. I'm going to see if we can get this to slide right down in place there to get that held captive. Sometimes you gotta stick something up through there. So there it is, it goes flush. Okay, now it looks like we've still got our hole lined up, so we're going to go ahead and slide our hammer in. Go ahead and slide on in the hammer so that the hole lines up right there. Your hammer pin's ready to go in, and then we go ahead and slide that all the way in. And then you can tell that's functioning properly. Yep, that's doing what it should do. Now, I did have one instance when I had put this gun back together, and first, I don't know how I managed to do it, but this was somehow stuck. And the trigger would pull, but it wouldn't push this up. So the gun would cycle and everything. I could rack a chamber around, and it just wouldn't fire. And I found out it was because this was somehow stuck. And after it was unstuck, then it fired fine. So you want to make sure and check that functionality when you assemble this, and it's got those pieces in it. Okay, so now let's see, what are we gonna do next here? Let me see. Is it backstrap safety time? No, it's not. What it is let's go ahead and get our springs in. And again, this is the this is your trigger spring. This is your disconnector spring. This is your backstrap spring. And so that just, you want to make sure your hammer strut is up out of the way. You want to lay it in just like this. You want to make sure that it is over, not under, all of these pieces that it's supposed to be laying on. It can go underneath that trigger or the disconnector down there. I've had that happen to me before. Okay, so there we go. We've got that in there. Now what you want to do is you're going to go ahead and take this, and we're just going to seat it up in there a little bit so that it holds that spring and it keeps that spring from coming back out. You want to have enough room so that this can come down in place when we're ready for it. Actually, we are ready for it right now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put in place our backstrap safety. That just slides in right like this. And then our back strap safety is held in place by our safety, and the hammer needs to be all the way in the back position for this to go in properly, otherwise it won't. Okay, there we go. And this detent wants to stick up on you, so you push that back a little bit, and there it is in place. Okay, so now what we want to do is you want to make sure that the piece of the hammer, first of all, let's get that trigger forward, because that's going to give us some spring tension if we don't have that. There we go. So that'll make it just harder to put that in. You want to make sure that that hammer strut is going straight down in there. We can go ahead and take our safety out now. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to go ahead and slide this pin in. Just like that. And where did my hammer go on me? You know what? This doesn't even require a hammer. Just hit the thing with a screwdriver or something. Taps right in. Okay, now you got your spring pressure on that. So there we go. And we want to make sure, yep, our plunger is functioning, or our plunger lever is functioning. And there we go. Now what we want to go ahead and do is, this is just the field strip portion of this. Actually, I don't want this in with this in place here. I took this out for a reason. I got that little shim for a reason. So I'm going to go ahead and back this out a little bit and show you how this goes in place without all this stuff in here. Okay, so we're going to depress our plunger. That's going to release the firing pin and the spring. Then we're going to take our plunger out. Okay, take that out, and then it makes it a little simpler to get this in place. All you do is take your punch, and we're going to get this started up in here. Wants to walk around on you here. Oh, come on. Always harder to do these things on camera. And there we go. Now, that's without the plunger in. And since I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and show how this shim goes in here. So let's go ahead and knock this pin out again here. There we go. Alright, so we got our pin out. Now we're just going to go ahead and slide this out. We're going to go ahead and slide our safety off here. Remember, the hammer's got to be in the back position. Okay, so that comes out. That releases our back strap safety. Then our spring can come out. And we do need to remove our hammer, so let's go ahead and take our hammer pin out here. Take that hammer out of there. And need to take the whole thing apart because it is trapped on these two pins. So, where are you? Did you fall in there? There, okay. Okay, these two pieces. Out, gone. Don't like those, don't need those. Alright, okay. So we got all our Series 80 parts out. Let's go ahead and slide our magazine back in here so we can get our disconnector and sear assembly in. And that just drops right in place there easily. Okay, now what we want to do, actually, okay, get our sear and disconnector assembly, and it goes together just like this. We got our magazine in, so it's a little easier for that to go in there, and then there we go, just like that. Then this is our little shim that goes in place of these other two pieces that are the Series 80 pieces, and this just slides into place right like this. Goes right up in place just like that. You'll be able to see the holes lining up. Put a dowel or a toothpick or something through there, and then go ahead and grab this pin, seat that in place. Sometimes you might need to wiggle it around a little bit. Thing likes to move around on you. There we go. Now we're going to get our hammer. Put our hammer in place. And there we go. Got our hammer in place. And then that little shim just sitting right there. And all this really is a spacer for your hammer and your sear and your disconnector and everything, just so it's not sliding around in you on the gun. That's just there to take up the space that was left when we put those when we took those parts out, the pieces of the Series 80 firing pin safety. Okay, so now what we're going to go ahead and do from there is we're going to go ahead and get our springs in place here, and you want to make sure that this fits down in where this lip is. There's a little place where this little edge on your spring sits. Now once we get that in place, what we want to go ahead and do is we're going to put our hammer spring detent in just a little bit. You want to have enough room. Take our magazine out now. We want to have enough room so this can fold down like this, but don't put it in all the way just yet. Okay, so what we want to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our backstrap safety in place. So you put your hammer strut down. We want to move the hammer forward so it goes in there, and your hammer goes in place. Your backstrap safety goes in place just like this. You want your hammer all the way in the back position, or it will not go in for you. And then this is something where you have to have a little tool to push in that detent just so you can get this started. Just get it started, and there we go. There's our backstrap safety. Okay, now we're going to let the hammer go forward because we want to put our hammer spring in place here. So just go ahead and put this back in place like this. Give it some taps, get it on in there. Okay, there we go. Alright, so we got those parts out of the way. I didn't want those in the gun, so there we go. Alright. And the reason I decided to go ahead and take these parts out is this is a gun that I use only for, this is just a range gun. This is not a gun that I'm going to use for home defense or anything. You know, and the odds of this gun falling and discharging without having that firing pin block in there are remote. I mean, you'd have to probably drop it from 2 stories, have it hit exactly in one specific way before anything to happen on this. It just simplifies things for me with this gun. Okay, now go ahead and put this together and make sure that we've got our spring in place the right way. That link should be forward resting on the spring. Then go ahead and slide this in place. You want to cock your hammer now, so it makes it easier for you. Then we're going to just, looking through that hole, you can see when you found that link, drop that in, pull it back until you're right there in that area. Let it slide on forward. Now you go ahead and you put your cap on here, push it down, and slide it on into place. And there we go. Now, all we have left to do is put our grips on. So, let's do that. There we go. And one last thing. You want to make sure that if you have a button like this, you have some Loctite on it. This already has a little Loctite on it, so it doesn't tend to walk out on me. And there we go. These are these pieces that I'll just go ahead and put back in storage. And let's go ahead and make sure our gun cycle's here. Make sure everything's functioning. After you're done working on a gun, you always want to do a function check with the safety systems and everything. Okay, so first things first. I don't want to drop this on an empty chamber, so I've got a couple dummy rounds in here and test the cycling here. Okay, good. Okay, so now still got a dummy round in there, so we're going to go ahead and test all our safeties out. Okay, safety on, trigger doesn't pull. Safety off, trigger doesn't pull. Safety off, back strap not depressed, trigger doesn't drop the hammer. Depress the back strap, hammer drop. Okay, so this gun is functioning very well. But I already knew that because I already did a bunch of work on this gun. So there it is. There's your 1911 assembly, Para Ordnance. Really fun gun to shoot. Double stack mag. Really well manufactured gun. I did try to look up and see if I could find when the manufacture date was this, but this is a gun that was made in Canada. You can probably see that there, made in Canada. And Para Ordnance told me that they do not keep records from the guns that were made in Canada. So my guess is this is probably a 90s gun. It did have some problems when I first got it. It was jamming a lot, and I ended up having to radius the feed ramp as it goes into the chamber. After I did that and polished it up, I have not had a problem with this since then. And I took these pieces out just because it doesn't seem necessary to me to have them in a gun that's not a defense gun and has very little chance of firing under those circumstances anyway. So anyway, that's it. That's the assembly of the Para Ordnance 1911, or as they like to call it, the 14-45, P14-45. Thanks for watching.